Thank you for listening to Mobility Redefined, brought to you by Modaxo. For more insights and information, please visit mobilityredefined.com. That is mobilityredefined.com. Welcome to the Mobility Redefined podcast, where we discuss innovative approaches shaping the future of mobility. I am Dr. Kaan Yildizgöz, and today I am excited to be joined by Roger Vahnberg, Deputy CEO and Senior Vice President of Västtrafik. Västtrafik is the mobility authority of Västra Götaland region, and Roger brings an impressive track record in leading electrification and ridership initiatives across this region, which is home to Gothenburg city, hosting nearly 1.8 million residents. Welcome, Roger.
Thank you. And thank you for inviting me. I'm really looking forward to the discussions. Thank you, Kaan.
Thank you so much for joining me. It will be a very interesting discussion to see the latest projects that you are implementing in your region and particularly in Gothenburg city. And Roger, I would like to first discuss with you about your decarbonization efforts. That's a significant focus, I know, for Västtrafik in recent years. And Västtrafik already made remarkable progress in electrifying its bus fleet. As of now, if I'm not wrong, nearly 1/3 of all your buses are electric, and you have an ambition to make all your buses electric by 2030. Can you talk to us through this electrification journey and what steps you are taking to ensure this transition is both efficient and sustainable?
Yes, sure. I will gladly go through the steps. We actually started with learning of electrification already for more than 10 years ago, 2011. That's when we started a project that we called the Hybrid Bus Project. We had 3 buses, plug-in hybrids, on a heavy line in Gothenburg that we worked together with our operator, Göteborgs Spårvägar, and Volvo, to test electric buses. And what we did there was that we had the normal timetable and we put in these 3 buses additional. So it was additional service. But we learned quite a lot from that. And then we took the next step, and that was a big project called Electricity. It was together with 14 other stakeholders, like the city of Gothenburg, the region of Västra Götaland, Volvo, the universities, and many others. And we started that project 2013. And that was to actually electrify a new route. We had a new route that went through downtown between 2 universities. And all buses was either fully electric or electric hybrids. It was a first fully electrified route in Europe, I believe, actually. So we started that one in 2015, and we got a lot of knowledge having this route. We got customer satisfaction was many times when we measured it was 100%. The bus drivers were very proud and happy to run this. The whole thing was a success. And from that knowledge, with all these buses and with that route, we decided 2019 to add 60 electric buses in existing contracts to learn even more. So we had one line, heavy line in Gothenburg, where we electrified the whole that line, 30 buses. And we had another roads in 3 other cities. One of the cities was a small rural city called Ridership, where we electrified all city buses there in the existing contract.
How many buses in this city were you electrified, all of them?
Total we electrified, there was 60 buses altogether in 2019. From there, we learned even more. And all these steps, gradually, we learned together with the industry, together with operators, together with the science. So from there on, we took the decision in 2019, 2020, to, in all our tenders, we procure all the operation. To all the bus tenders, when we tender city traffic, we require 100% electric buses. So that's where we are, where we have almost 500 electric buses in the city traffic. In about 3 years, all our city traffic will be electric. So next step is regional buses.
It seems even before 2030, you will be having all your buses electric.
Not all the buses, all the city buses will be electric before 2030. The challenge with the regional buses is, one is very few suppliers that can supply that, especially European suppliers. And the second is that it's much harder for us to get the electric power to rural depot where we don't know where the depot is. So it's a little harder, I would say, to electrify regional buses than city buses. But the buses, we don't see any increase in costs. When we electrify, we procure for 10 years contracts. It is not more expensive to specify electric than others.
That's great to hear your ambition on this one, Roger. And what I think is that also maybe Sweden is also hosting some European OEMs, bus manufacturers, and that could be also giving some benefits to you while you are having this much ambitions in terms of electrifying your bus fleet.
Yeah, definitely. It is very important. It's important that the suppliers are, that they are focused on this and that they get new bus models for this electrification. But it is a challenge. It is a challenge that everybody in the whole world is more or less want to have electrify. Even if we are very early, of course, compared to China, we are not early. So, yeah.
Thank you, Roger. Also, electrification is not only the change in terms of technology or the vehicles, it's also the change in the mindset. And it is certainly increasing the attractiveness of public transport as per the studies what we see all around the world. And I know that increasing the ridership is a priority for Västtrafik as well. And you have employed different creative campaigns to reach new users. Could you tell us about some of these initiatives, like the 2-week public transport trials for car owners? That's what I love, I must admit, to attract more car users to the public transport. And how effective have these campaigns been in encouraging people to shift to the public transport?
Yeah, we'll be happy to talk about that. We have had this type of campaigns more than 10 years. Every year we do this campaign. We have found that a campaign to change behavior is best in January and after the summer in August, September. That is when people are open to change behavior. You know, everybody's putting a New Year resolution, not everybody, but many. And so you are a little open for change. And what we do then is that we offer free travel, as you say, for 2 weeks. We targeting an area where we have good potential. We have a very good, attractive service. And we're targeting then people that travel by cars. So it's a very sophisticated but also automated process where we send these out to the target and they have to answer some questions. And then depending on what the answers, they get this free trial. And because we have the ticket, which is a phone, but we can then record, see how many continue to travel after the 2 weeks, after 3 months, and after 1 year. And the result has been great. Our conclusion is that there is a lot of prejudices about public transport. Generally, people think that it takes longer time to travel with public transport than it really does. And generally, people think that it goes faster with a car than it actually does. So what we need to make sure is that people try. So we have to help them and then we nudge them into that direction. So that's what we do. And at the same time as we send these out, we also have big campaigns in different, it can be social media, it can be on bus stops and on our buses or trams or whatever, or trains, will be more awareness. And usually they're very quite funny and so on. So they're sophisticated. And you asked, has it been successful or how successful is it? Yes, it is actually about 1/3 to half who actually try that then continue to travel with us after 1 year. So we follow the whole year. So not only a couple of weeks.
That's great. That's a great number, Roger.
It's a great number. But it's not, just to explain, it's not half of the people we send out. It's a half that actually try. Yeah. But when you try, and that is, of course, you have to do the work where you'd have to target both the area, has to be a good area where we have potential, and it has to have good service and type things, and then targeting people that are traveling with cars.
That's perfect, because it seems to me like a POC of public transport, what you are doing there for some certain selected customers. And it seems having a conversion ratio of 1/3 is great among the ones that you conducted this POC.
Yeah, it's great. And that's why we're doing it every year and sometimes twice a year. And we also, I should say, additional to this, we always also do a similar thing for people when they move. If you move from one city to another, You might move because of different reasons, or you move because you change jobs or whatever. At that time, that is a perfect time because you are then open for change because you already changed. And how should I now travel when I'm living in this new city or this new community? Then we offer 2 weeks free too.
That's great. I remember also some years ago when you moved to Vienna, they were sending you a monthly free welcome ticket for the people who were moving recently, just to welcome them, telling them that, okay, welcome to our network, to discover it and use it. That's a great initiative. And I know after the pandemic, like many other cities in your region, the ridership got the impact. And we were discussing in the past your contracting model that you are implementing in Västtrafik. And if I'm not wrong, before the pandemic, Västtrafik's contracting model ties at least 30% of contract value to the ridership numbers, which was presenting an opportunity to increase passenger numbers. Could you share how your current contracting model works after the pandemic and the impact it has on encouraging operators to focus on customer satisfaction and increase the passenger numbers?
Now, I can say before the pandemic, there was two big parts in our contracting model. It was incentives, the ridership incentives, as you talked about, with 30% of the contract value. That was depending on how many passengers you got on board. And the other one is a bonus on customer satisfaction, 1-2% of the contract value. What we found when it was the pandemic was that, of course, for us, like everybody else, the ridership, of course, decreased. For us, it decreased to half. And of course, this contracting model was both up and down. So if you decrease the ridership, you get less money. So this was a big problem. And we had different negotiations to solve it. But we saw it is a disadvantage. And especially when you came out of the pandemic, that this was a negative thing for the operators. So we concluded that in the meantime, anyway, we cannot have these incentives. But we still have the bonus for customer satisfaction. I should say that has been very crucial to increase customer satisfaction. So that is 1-2% above the normal revenue that the operator gets. They get these 1-2% of the contract value. And many of them then focus on that to get maximum, to get 2%. And when we measure customer satisfaction, it has increased dramatically during the last, we have had this for 10 years and it increased. So it increased so big. So we have to change the model to measure it because it's almost 100%. And then there's no meaning to how can you improve? But we still believe that it can improve. So we changed the way so it's getting lower results. But yes, it is a drive. And then we add other things instead of ridership. We had something called validating incentives that we focus very much after the pandemic to get the box fare revenue up. Even if we now are about 91-92% of the ridership, we are above 100% in revenue if you take account also the increase in...
So you mean 92% in comparison to the pre-COVID level? Your ridership as of now? Okay.
But the revenue, the fare box revenue, if you take away the increase in ticket price, it's 106-107%. What we have done is to focus to get bigger fare box revenue, decrease the fare evasion. We have decreased the fare evasion from 10 to 6% in Gothenburg. And there's a lot of different measures, but we need the operators' help to get that. More service, you have to go in the front door. We have plainclothes, ticketing inspectors, and so on. So it's a lot of different measures, but it has been very successful.
But that's interesting as well, Roger. Can you tell some more information about what you have done in terms of coming from 10% to the 6% for the fare evasion? You already gave some of them, but this can be interesting for listeners.
Yeah, I would say the plainclothes, as I say, plainclothes ticketing inspectors has been the most important single measure. It's only 20 people, inspectors, and we have about 100 inspectors or something like that. So it's 20 today, but it can increase. But it has been so much in the media when we introduced this. People that are traveling with us were not paying. They see this, oh, it's going to be much harder now. I have to buy a ticket. And they say that in the media, I have to buy a ticket now. And that has been very important. But another thing also is important is to steer where you can. You cannot, when it is totally heavy traffic, you have a big high capacity, you cannot do that. But other buses, you can steer it to actually you go in the front door. And what we do then is we support the drivers with people on bus stops, not on all bus stops, of course, but big bus stops, to help them steer people to change the behavior. And that has also been a very important measure.
I think it's interesting, especially when we are talking about the fare evasion or other security-related matters. The perception of the people is really important. And I remember one experience I had 18, 19 years ago while I was leading Metro Istanbul. We took a decision just to change the color of the security staff, their dress. It was a black dress that they were wearing. And they were not always being noticed by the passengers. And then when we moved to the color, which was orange, they started to wear the orange dress and orange vests. I saw immediately the increase in the satisfaction from the security measures coming from the passengers, 5 to 6% of increase, because they started to notice that there are security staff in the stations, in other places and so on. In the past, they were not noticing this. It's very, very good to see also that you almost reduced 40% your fare evasion level in your region, Roger.
Yeah, thank you. And yes, and I think also it's very important to have a mix. You have a mix with the ticketing inspectors that everybody can see. Then you can see when you're sitting in another bus, they're coming ticketing inspectors there and such. So you see, same as the police works really, but also to have a group that are plainclothes, and these plainclothes, they are dressed like you and me and then everybody else. They have their own clothes that they have. So they're very different dressed. They look like any other passengers, and that's really perfect. But they, of course, have an identification showing that they are ticketing.
One other point which I would like to get your insight is about Västtrafik is also known in terms of sustainable supply chain and ethical standards. You are pioneering the industry on this, and then you are emphasizing a sustainable supply chain and setting high standards for supplier certification, especially if I'm not wrong under RBA or SMETA guidelines. Why this is important for Västtrafik, and how do you ensure that all suppliers align with these standards for ethical and responsible practices?
Well, it is to start with a very important issue in Sweden, and I would say anyway in all Nordic countries. So all regions in Sweden are complying with the code of conduct that is actually the same for all Sweden, all regions. And we are owned by the regions. And of course, this code of conduct, some of the things is connected with United Nations human rights definition and goals. And then we started a project together with the other two big authorities, Stockholm and Malmö. And we worked on how can we take steps, because we can't ensure everything, but we will take steps. And we have worked together with another organization just to see what can we do. How can we actually follow up? It's one thing to set requirements in a tender. We are very good authorities, generally, I think, to put on requirements in the tender. But to make any difference, you have to follow it up and you have to be able to do it. That's what we have done in this work, have concluded that an independent audit, like you said, their RBA or SMETA, is a very good and efficient way. And we require that when we procure bus operation and when we procure our own vehicles, we own trains and trams, we demand this kind of audit. And that is a very detailed audit. It's not just a paper. They have to go there, the independent, and go and interview a lot of workers, and so to see working conditions. And our aim is first that it's not any violation of human rights, like forced labor and such things. But the other aim is also that these audits, showing, of course, some discrepancies, every audit will give you a recommendation, whichever company. And these recommendations, then we get that into our contract that will implement these recommendations. So we actually make a difference for real for the workers, wherever they are.
So I think it's a very important and growing concern all around the world. And thank you as an authority taking a lead on this one. I'm also very happy that we are sharing this practice via Mobility Redefined today with many other listeners. And If we talk about also your general challenges and opportunities, your region is a big region covering nearly 300 kilometers. And what are some unique challenges and opportunities you encounter in providing public transport across this diverse landscape, mainly from urban centers like Gothenburg to the rural areas?
Yeah, it is as you say. It's a big difference. We have Gothenburg and Gothenburg region with 1 million very close to each other, and then we have rural areas, and we have communities with only 10 people per square kilometer. There is a big difference, and one thing is that we have quite a lot of train lines, train tracks during our region. Both trains goes up to Oslo, to Stockholm, and down to Malmö, and a few other good train tracks. I think it's about 35 of our 49 municipalities have trains in their community with a stop. That is, of course, becomes a backbone of being able to travel and to live where you are and travel to work or studies. And I should say that it's very important for our region that you should be able to stay and live in the rural area. And either, of course, if you have to work there. But for us, our responsibility is to make sure that you can commute to other areas. So that is very important. So we have these as a backbone with the trains. We also have in all our rural areas, we have something called near traffic. That sounds so great in English, but it's near traffic. That means that you have then the possibility to order a taxi. It's a taxi service. It's not taxi, but it's a taxi service. It's coordinated with our big service that we have for elderly and disabled. So we have a big such operation. When you in near traffic, when you phone the same number, you have a certain slots during the day. We steer it to certain slots, and then it's coordinated. So you might sit with an elderly person or with a disabled person or something, taking you to the nearest community center. So then you can continue forward. So that is during weekdays, we have this service. Not in the morning, but the rest of the day, including the evening. And we have other services as well. But it is, of course, a big difference, but it's very important for us that it is possible to continue living in the rural areas and that is not everybody going to the urban areas. We want to have a livable countryside.
Certainly, the services like near traffic are very important, particularly for rural areas. On-demand type of mobility services. And Roger, are there any other points you would like to share with us regarding the future of mobility, your future vision and projects and the goals, in addition to what we have discussed until now?
Yeah, there is a lot when you look at the future. But when we start about the future, I think it's very important to first talk about one big challenge that I know that many faces around the world, and that is shortage of drivers. And we had a big shortage last year and also the beginning of this year. And we as an authority, we do not employ any drivers. It's operators that employ. But I believe, and we believe, that we should support our operators. We should help, and we can also put requirements into our tendering to improve the working conditions. We can support the operators in the recruitment process. And we have done quite a lot during the last year. And today we don't have a shortage. We run all the service. But we know that the coming years can be challenging. So you cannot just sit back. You have to continue working on this in different. And we continue working on the requirements when we're tendering to improve the working conditions. And especially it's important to improve it to attract young people and women, because we need more women. We need more young people. So that's very important. It's a prerequisite. We can't increase the service without drivers. So it's very important to focus on that. But then we have big goals. We have big goals to increase our model share. Model share for the whole region is about 31%. We want to come up to 40%. And that is, of course, a big jump. And we need to do a lot of things. We increase the capacity. So we buy a lot of new trams, bigger trams, longer trams. Now 45 meters are on the way. We already have some. And we get 60 of this. We got 100 new trams, new trains. So a lot of new capacity, but also new infrastructure is always needed. More links, both for trams and for trains. So we're building a train tunnel on Gothenburg, which means that we can increase the service in the train service. So we have to increase to be even more attractive and to shorten the travel time. When I talk about travel time, it's of course very important what I've just said, that with more capacity, with more links, so you get faster. But it's also important to look at the old network to see where can we actually speed up the tram service that's going on the streets. We have too many tram stops, so we started to take away tram stops. It's not very popular in the area where you take it away, but it is crucial to increase the speed, and you will attract more people.
How is the reaction of the people on this one? This is, I believe, a lot, because to increase the commercial speed, average commercial speed, you cannot have a lot of stops alongside the route. But I remember while I was working for Istanbul, I was getting a lot of complaint when I canceled some bus stops. Politicians were pressuring a lot. So how was the reaction of the people?
Yeah, you have to be bold. Yeah, the reaction is, of course, big, I can say. But at the same time, we have now started gradually. This is a gradual process. But actually, we ground our decisions in an overall strategy that the politicians have decided. And then from there to actually implement them, then we have to take away tram stops. And we get some reaction. Actually, one tram stop that we take away now is very few using, but everybody that living in the area has signed a petition. But in the media has not been so much. Actually, there are some other questions that arise. Why don't you take away more? Yeah, so it's quite interesting. But I think it's natural that in general, people will think this is good. Just don't take away my tram stop. Yeah. So that is. But generally, I think people are in favor. But it is a little, as I said, you have to be bold and actually go. You have a strategy, you have to implementing it, and the result will be great. The result will be that more people will use public transport, and that is what we want.
That's great initiatives, especially these initiatives are mainly focusing on increasing the service quality of public transport. That's what I could be telling for the wider society, increasing the commercial speed, increasing the capacity, increasing the number of offerings. Thank you so much, Roger, for sharing these insights into the Västtrafik's innovative strategies and achievements. Before we close, is there anything else you would like to highlight or any advice you would like to share with other public transport agencies aiming for similar goals? I'm asking this because many years you played significant role in organizations like UITP, chairing their division on organizing authorities, and maybe you have some advisors to the other cities as well.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, well, we have talked a lot here about attracting and making public transport more attractive. But I think also it's very important for authorities like ours and all other authorities around the world to make driving car a little more unattractive. That means congestion charges, which we have in Gothenburg. It means ultra-low emission zones like London, fewer and more expensive parking in downtown areas, and other such measures. They are hard decisions, but they are necessary if the cities should be livable and attractive. It's necessary for the climate. It's necessary for the local health. So that is my big advice. All other authorities and my own to continue working on this.
The congestion charging scheme in Gothenburg is also very interesting. Could you share your experience?
Yes, of course. Yes, we have had congestion charges since 2013. It was a package together with the region and the national government in order to finance infrastructure for public transport, but also to reduce congestion and to improve the health and less emissions and so on. So it is, you can say, a ring outside downtown areas where if you travel in or out from this ring, then you get charged. It's an automatic system. It's charged with a license plate camera and is differentiated so you pay more in rush hour compared to low peak. And it is about from 6 in the morning to 6:30 in the evening on weekdays. It is a very good system to decrease congestion. We have it now for more than 10 years. You still have less cars than in the beginning because it dramatically fell after we introduced congestion charges. So it's a very good way to decrease congestion. It's a very good way to make better health, less emissions. And you get money. And then, of course, it's important to use that money for sustainable mobility, which is used here in Gothenburg. I think what is needed is that people have to be bold and actually have some courage to introduce. It's a great measurement and a great system to have this in all cities with congestions. You decrease the congestions and you increase the livability of the city.
I think it's also a very good example of polluter pays principle, where you can generate some funding resource like you to spend for public transport. Like I know that in London, for example, they generate the money and then they use this money back for investing on their bus system that are serving the congestion zone area.
Yeah, I think that's great. Actually, it is a lot of negative and people are against it, but really a lot of people win because the people that actually need to go by car, that's going to go faster for them because that increases speed of the traffic flow. And the public transport can get more revenue and more investments to improve the service and make that even more attractive. So it goes both ways. It's a very good system.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Roger. It has been wonderful having you on the podcast. So thanks to you for joining us, and as well thanks to our listeners for tuning into this episode of Mobility Redefined. Stay tuned for more conversations with leaders transforming public transport across the globe.
Thank you, Kaan. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to Mobility Redefined, brought to you by Modaxo. For more insights, visit our website at mobilityredefined.com or follow us on LinkedIn. Be sure to subscribe to the podcast on your favorite app to stay updated with our latest episodes. Thank you for tuning in, and we hope you enjoyed the conversation.